weekend, and on Monday, the business wasn't operating. He's kind of, closed it up, so to speak, because he knows the sale is pending. My recommendation would be that the board should probably memorialize a compliance order. I was in communication with the city prosecutor's office to draft up the compliance order so that the nuisance abatement board wasn't prohibiting or preventing that sale from occurring. Essentially, the issue and the matter will take care of itself once the property is sold. So I guess through the chair, that would be my recommendation, just to memorialize that order, and I'll obviously advise when that sale completes at the next meeting or before the next meeting.
Yeah, so I know maybe some questions or whatever, but is there some vote that we need to take on that? Just approving like that they're in compliance and we release jurisdiction?
If you're going to release jurisdiction, Don Lauderdale for the record, if you're going to release jurisdiction, then you're going to terminate. If you're going to terminate jurisdiction, then that's it. And we're done with it forever until it comes up again, which I don't think it's going to, because it's definitely going through. If we're not going to release today, then we would still have to vote on issuing a compliance order that they are in full compliance, and that we're going to watch them for another 30 days. But I think once it's sold, it's over, and then we'll have new owners, and we don't have jurisdiction of the new owners without having another meeting and finding them a nuisance again, if that was to happen.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. What if for some reason this sale does not go through?
Which does happen. If the sale does not go through, you can still have it set down like Detective Jones was saying.
I would like to see this deferred until we're absolutely sure the sale has gone through, and then talk about releasing them at that point.
Well, what they need is a signed order of compliance that we're going to file, or we've given them, that shows they are in compliance, because that otherwise, what happens when we bring a property under the jurisdiction and find them as a nuisance, we file a record with the Broward County property appraiser showing that the property has
A lien.
defect, basically. And so we hinder the ability of the owner to sell the property as good title. They don't have good title to transfer to the new owner. So by doing this compliance order, we give them the ability to transfer the property as good title. Now, it doesn't mean we have to release the jurisdiction of the board on the new owner.
I'm good with that.
We can do that next time,
Okay.
as the new owner's gone. But right now, we're just asking that we can file the compliance order is all it was about.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to file the compliance order if there's no other questions.
I'll second.
Do we need to call the roll for this?
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay,
Aye.
Mr. Faniff,
Aye.
Mr. Slotnick,
Aye.
Mr. Pemper,
Aye.
and Chair Foreman.
Aye.
That carries. Motion
Perfect.
carries.
There's a typo just on the slide here, the date. Closing is tomorrow, December 9th, 2022.
We're already in 23. I like it.
We're all looking forward to a new year.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Okay. Is there anything else on that, Detective, or?
No, and just in my communication with the owner and the attorney representing the purchaser, I think their plan is to level out that property and do some sort of wild development there. So I don't think we'll hear the name 00 Chateau any longer. So.
Sure. Okay, so I guess let's move on to the next case, which is case number 22-1103, which is 5100 North State Road 7. This is a new case, the Plaza Hotel. So I guess go ahead and present kind of everything that's going on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So just before I start, the manager of the hotel, Mr. Danny Santiago, is here. Joyce and I have met with Danny and spoken to him several times on the phone and engaged in email communication. We do have a bunch of pictures that I'll kind of show as we go through. The slides aren't exactly, perfectly synced up with the facts, but if you guys, want me to go back or reread, or engage in dialogue, feel free. The Plaza Hotel is located at 5100 North State Road 7 in Fort Lauderdale. The hotel is located on the east side of the roadway, kind of borders Turnpike, commercial, and I guess that would be Cypress Creek or McNabb. According to the property appraiser website, the hotel was purchased by its current owner in September of 2018 and has approximately 272 rooms. The listed owner is 5100 North State Road 7 FLL Incorporated, which is a Florida for-profit corporation. Over the last 6 months, the property has had a total of 373 calls for service, and over the last year, the calls for service total 559. The calls for service vary greatly from simple calls all the way up to very violent offenses. There were 2 qualifying nuisance abatement related incidents that occurred on July 8th, 2022, which was a sexual battery, and on July 27th, 2022, which was a robbery, resulting in a warning letter being sent certified mail on August 25th of 2022. The letter was sent to both the owner of the property and the registered agent. The owner, via the registered mail, took receipt on September 15th, 2022. However, the registered agent never took receipt. From the time that that warning letter was sent, we received no communication from the owner or from management. So on November 3rd, 2022, at approximately 16:05 hours, which would be about 4 p.m., using a confidential informant, $40 worth of crack cocaine was purchased on the property. Later that day, about 10:30 p.m., also using a confidential informant, another $40 worth of crack cocaine was purchased. On November 16th, 2022, using a confidential informant, $100 worth of crack cocaine was purchased on the property. For on Monday, November 28th, I went to the actual location along with Joyce, and we met with the hotel manager, Mr. Santiago. We made him aware of the concerns that FLPD had and explained to him what nuisance abatement was and the process by which the property would be taken before the board. He stated that he is a representative of the property and obviously that he would be expected to attend tonight's meeting. He gave us his contact information and told us that he was hired approximately 2 months ago for the major purpose, I guess, of addressing the issues that the hotel has. He was in the process of hiring an armed guard. He had raised the nightly room rate, terminated 2 problem employees, ordered new locks for the rooms, which was a definite area of contention, or a definite area that the police department was recommending. He also noted that the hotel was planning a multi-million-dollar renovation and presented as very cooperative. Later, I think that week, I had emailed them a request from some of our undercover units about who the current employees were of the property, as well as who had been recently terminated. He responded to that request right away. And, since, with the exception of him being sick, we've been in constant communication. He actually requested that day that the police department send him what our recommendations would be so that he could begin working on them as soon as possible, even before tonight's meeting. He kind of brought me up to speed on what actions he had taken even prior to tonight's meeting about what those recommendations would be. Joyce and I drove the property and took some photos. We discovered numerous areas that can be improved upon to reduce crime, and those are obviously reflected in the recommendations. As I had stated, I emailed Mr. Santiago the preliminary recommendations, but of course I'll read through what we arrived at tonight. This past Monday on 12/5, I traveled to the hotel at night in order to conduct a check at night. Monday probably being a slower night, just to take some photos for the board's reference. Some of the photos that you'll see, they do have some daytime pictures mixed in with some nighttime pictures, so I'll be clear to kind of advise which ones are which. While I was there, I observed several people loitering in the parking lot and in vehicles around the perimeter of the hotel. I didn't see any on-site security while I was there on any of my visits. I think Mr. Santiago will speak to that. I noted that when I was on site the date of my visit, the room rate could be found online for as low as $49. I also spoke to several other detectives who are actively working on cases that occurred at the property. They gave some weigh-in as to the recommendations and what they believed may curtail incidents that are specific to the types of crimes they investigate. So I think it would probably be beneficial if we started some of the photos. And I can kind of point out, I guess, some of the areas to the board as we go through. There's a lot of photos, so feel free to, if you have any questions or if you have any questions about any of that before I read the recommendations. And then we'll go back and do the recommendations. So this slide here is from the Broward County Property Appraiser's website. And the roadway that you see off to the left is North State Road 7 in the 5100 block, just for reference. So the top faces north, the bottom is south. You'll see that the property on the left-hand side of the image kind of begins where, I guess, the main entrance to the facility is. There's kind of like the, I guess, the white roof building is kind of like the main area of it. Pools in the middle, and then there's some other structures kind of on the south end, and then that L-shaped structure that's probably like the more main area of the hotel. In the back there's some tennis courts that don't look like they're being used, and just some general parking. And if you could go to the next one. This is just the front side of the property in orange there. This is the lobby. This was taken during the day. And it's just the general check-in area of the hotel. This is the same image, but from the other angle. This is like a cafeteria style area and a hallway that leads back to some of the rooms. This is the cafeteria area or kitchen area, the restaurant that was closed down at the time of our visit. This is a hallway kind of just off the main area. There's some seating there. During all of my visits, this kind of seems like an area that people like to, I guess, hang out or congregate. I'm not really sure if they're waiting for check-in or if it's used for some function, but I noticed that at each of our visits, kind of people like to hang out in those areas. Can you go back?
Trying to.
I think you just keep going. I think you keep going forward. Some of the, basically we drove around the perimeter. So if you go to yeah, there we go. This is the like front driveway entrance. You can go to the next one. Next one. This is again the front area of the hotel. Next one. This is the back area where the tennis courts are. It's kind of just a very open, I guess, somewhat unused portion of the hotel. You'll see in kind of some of the other pictures, especially the nighttime ones, that was again like an area that perhaps could be a little bit more well lit, that I observed some kind of people hanging out. I don't even know if they were staying at the hotel or not. This would be a view from the south side looking north, I believe behind that dumpster area, and Mr. Santiago could probably point this out better, but I believe on the back side of that is where the pool area is and kind of like the courtyard area. This is an entry that's kind of towards the back of the structure. You can click the next one. This is an entryway for what was listed as like a welcome center. I'm not actually sure that the welcome center is being used anymore, but you can click through the next one. One of the things that we observed while we were there is there's a lot of entry and exit points to the hotel. This is a I guess like kind of a trash / like work area that's located on the north middle section of the property that you can observe as you drive through the parking lot. It seems like this area gets used for, I guess, multiple different purposes, but in my visits out there, in this one, you can, the image speaks for itself. And the other ones, I don't know if it was being used as like an outside kind of temporary trash storage or what it was being used for, but. In this image, this is just to the north of the entrance as you go around. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see some people hanging out there just along the little wall area, just kind of hanging out. And keep going. Keep going. I saw that one. These are some of the images that were taken at night. So in the previous image that you saw for that entryway that was kind of on the backside, this is that same image at night. Keep in mind that as I was taking these pictures, they were with a iPhone 14 Pro, so the lighting and is, I don't know how to shoot it in the unedited Apple RAW photos, but just keep in mind that what you do see here is with that image correction and extra lighting and yeah. This is again like that welcome center side of the hotel on the south side that I don't believe is being used. This would be, I believe, the back side of the hotel from like the furthest point in the lot east facing west. They do have like a large floodlight installed on the top of the hotel, which does a pretty good job of lighting the general area. But you'll see here, maybe in some of the other photos, that just slightly to the north there's definitely like some very dark areas of the property that people were loitering in, and even as me and my partner were driving through, kind of surprised us that there were even people there. So you can go to the next one. This is just the lobby in the front at night. It's very well lit, fresh paint, so to speak. No issues right in that general area. This is that same angle from the south side, looking at that blue dumpster where the pool area is. Again, the image definitely looks a lot brighter than it does at night, but you kind of get a general sense that they do have lighting. I believe Mr. Santiago said it's about 90% operational and functional. Probably a few things that could be added here or there, but go to the next one. So this was the image that I was telling you about before, where there was a dark area of the parking lot. This picture really doesn't do it justice how dark that area can be at night. You can kind of see the people. It's hard to see, but underneath the tree, they're kind of hanging out there on the pavers. There's somebody hanging out on a bench back there. The iPhone definitely does a good job of lightening and brightening that up, whereas me and my partner could barely see those people as we were driving through. And as we did drive through, we noticed, as we kind of did some observation, that there were some people who were just parked in their cars, hanging out in their cars in the lot. And this was about, I think, midnight, 1 a.m. or so that these were taken. This is the area that we observed, I would say, like the most activity, people walking through the property. We observed at least a few people who walked through the property, who entered the property, walked through, exited, probably weren't staying there, didn't look like they were staying there. And then along in this corridor, like specifically that white vehicle that you see behind the stop sign, that was occupied by a few people with their windows rolled down. They were probably there for at least an hour before we left, so, you know, kind of no idea what they were doing. But this is that same trash area at night. This is the front of the hotel looking south at night.
Signs behind Robert.
So unless you have any questions, I'll go through the recommendations.
I have a couple of questions. The people that were hanging out there, were those guests of the hotel, or they just came in off the street and they were hiding back there because it was dark?
Yeah, we just need you on a mic.
Yeah, come
Yeah,
up
you
to
able to
the
just come up
podium.
here?
Sir, I didn't get your. How do you spell laundry? Thank you.
I think you should read the.
Test.
Okay, thank you.
You should read the recommendations first, because it will answer.
You can hang here.
It'll answer some of their questions. if you read them.
Through the chair, would you like the recommendations first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the recommendations and then.
So the police recommendations for the Plaza Hotel are as follows. The owner or owner's designated manager will file a no trespass affidavit with the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department and post no trespassing signs on the property within 14 days and thereafter enforcing trespass laws. The owner will ensure the affidavit is updated accordingly. The owner or owner's designated manager will laminate, clearly display within 14 days and for the duration of jurisdiction, nuisance abatement signs measuring 16 by 20 inches stating that the property is under the jurisdiction of the Nuisance Abatement Board and is being monitored by the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department. The placement will be directed by the detective, but will but no less than at each entrance of the building or buildings. The owner or designated manager will maintain all video cameras and recording equipment in good working order. The owner will provide on-site management and a representative of the police department with access to the cameras and recordings during all business hours. Recordings shall be maintained for no less than 30 days. The owner or owner's designated manager will maintain all exterior lighting in good working order on the front, rear, and sides of the property in accordance with all City of Fort Lauderdale code requirements within 30 days. All entry and exit locations of the building should be well lit. The owner or owner's designated manager will repair all fencing surrounding the property in accordance with City of Fort Lauderdale code within 60 days, maintaining the fencing in good order. The owner or owner's designated manager will replace room locks with locks recommended by the investigative detective within 30 days of this order. All entrances will be locked for entry purposes after dark. The main entrance will remain the sole point of entry after dark and until daylight, with the exception for emergencies. The owner and owner's designated manager will maintain all exterior lighting in good working order in the front, rear, and sides of the building according to City of Fort Lauderdale code requirements within 30 days, and all entry and exit locations of the building should be well lit. The owner and owner's designated manager will repair all fencing surrounding the property in accordance with code requirements within 60 days, maintaining in good order. The owner or owner's designated manager will replace all room locks with locks recommended by the investigative detective within 30 days of this order. All entrances, the owner or owner's designated manager will conduct property checks at this location every week to assess the condition of the property and notify FLPD with any concerns. The property owner or owner's designated manager will then email the investigative detective with each one of these property checks to report the status of these recommendations and their compliance. The owner's designated manager will provide a list of current employees within 3 days of this order and send an updated list 3 days prior to the next nuisance abatement board meeting. The owner or manager will notify the investigative detective of any employee terminations. The owner or owner's designated manager will evict any tenant guest responsible for any nuisance-related crime. The owner or owner's designated manager will maintain guest and tenant information for a minimum of 90 days, including a picture ID, and make this information available to the Fort Lauderdale Police Department upon request. The owner or owner's designated manager will inform the investigative detective of the weekly occupancy rate. The investigative costs total a dollar amount of $1,743.21. The owner is assessed 50% of this amount plus expenses, which equals $1,171.61. This cost is to be paid prior to the January 12th, 2023 nuisance abatement board meeting. If no meeting occurs in January of 2023, then prior to the next scheduled nuisance abatement board meeting, the balance would be due. The board will waive the remaining balance of $571.60 of the investigative costs if the owner complies with the order within the specified time frames. If the owner fails to comply with the specified time frames, the remaining 50% or the $571.60 of the investigative costs will be assessed. If any nuisance-related crimes occur on the property, the remaining 50% of the investigative charges will be imposed. If any of the above listed items are not complied with within the time frame set forth, a fine in the amount of $250 per day per item, not to exceed $250 per day, will be imposed for each day of noncompliance. The owner will appear or the representative of the property will appear before the nuisance abatement board at the January 12th, 2023 meeting and all scheduled nuisance abatement board meetings for the duration of jurisdiction unless notified by the investigative detective. The nuisance abatement board will retain jurisdiction over the property for a period of 1 year from the date of this order. As I had stated, I was in communication with the owner who requested just a copy of what was going to be the preliminary recommendations. The owner advised and was observed by us that the no trespass affidavit was already completed. 90% of the exterior lighting is in working order, that the fencing was a work in progress, that they were aware of issues, that the replacement of the room locks, which was a very specific area, that he provided an invoice, that the hotel had already purchased new locks. He provided photographs of that and an invoice stating, with a time frame of when those locks were going to be actually installed. I guess as it relates to several different issues with the loitering and people being evicted and people hanging out, Mr. Santiago advised that the hotel was in the process of hiring an armed security company. He also inquired about a police detail, but he's here obviously today to speak to if the board has any of those questions.
My other question that I was going to ask was about the fencing. Now, I guess looking at this picture, some of the fencing is chain link, and then the fencing that's on the west side is the solid fence. Is that how it works around the perimeter?
If you could just step up to the microphone there.
Yeah, that is correct. And if you notice also in the pictures, in the back of our parking lot, it's also a building, a business they use right away in and out. So it's a lot of, they use a lot of 18-wheelers. And one of the things that we realize is that we find out this literally on Tuesday, one of their trucks hit one of our poles, those, the big, lighting pole.
For the record, you state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Danny Santiago, I'm the general manager of the Plaza Hotel, I apologize. We realized that they hit one of the poles that damaged 6 of our big pole. We already called a company, he's gonna come out on Tuesday to fix it. We didn't realize that. We were or at least I was under the impression that there was a city. I've been doing this business for 33 years, believe it or not, I'm 52 years old. My main experience is to come into this distressed properties to fix and move on. Our goal is that in 2024 that we are gonna sell the property because obviously my job is we're gonna do a $7.2 million renovation in it. And one of the things that I agree with his, everything that he displays here is correct. The question you asked first about what people hanging out in the parking lot in the car, we really noticing that the reason they do that because they homeless and they live in their car and use the parking lot to really hang in there because of the back of our building, you don't have a right of way in and out. We're working on that. And actually on Tuesday, our armed company who we hired a month ago is gonna start doing 24-hour security on Fridays and Saturdays, which is our biggest high occupancy, which average about 200 plus room. We got we had it into this weekend, security coming between 6 in the afternoon to 7, and then one coming at 10 to 7 in the morning. Now we're gonna have 24 hours and 2 agents in the afternoon, Fridays and Saturdays. I mean, again, Mr. Jefferson has been great. Again, when I took over this property, it was worse than what it is now. Because again, nobody really have the finger on the pulse. So now we're making a lot of changes, and that's what we're doing. And he's right about the locks. It's gonna take us about 5 weeks. It's 322 locks. And one thing that he did not mention that we did in the picture, the outside doors where people are hanging out through the side, I purchased all through new security doors. That door get breaked in probably 2-3 cents a week. And what they doing is when they break in our building, when you come in, the stairways, it's really got a big space that you can actually sleep under there. And that's what has been happening. So we've been cleaning that up. So hopefully all those things gonna start getting taken care of. And, I'm looking forward to working with him and the Florida, because again, it's a disgrace that this property is this way. It really is. And on the happy note, today, which I think we're very happy, his name is Anthony Robinson. He was missing since November 28th. He was found in our hotel today by one of our agents. So we called the police. They came and got him this morning.
Live?
Is he a kid?
Alive, yes. It's a 15-year-old. He was with 2 other, young kid with a female who she also got arrested. Who's been there since the 29th of November. They were paying normally, but because the pictures show up, and I got my morning meeting with my team, my executive housekeeper recognized him because obviously.
Wow.
And we called the police, and they came in, and I mean, it was an amazing time for us. Outside of everything that's happening in our hotel, that the fact that we were able to help a young kid in this situation, and made me proud of what we did.
Wait, how did you get that picture? How do you?
Well, because it came through the news, and I got an alert with Fox local news, and when I saw it, it came to the Fox News. So in my morning meeting with the department head, I show it because the hotel is the one thing that people do. And sure enough, my second housekeeper said, "Wait a minute, he's on 541." We verified. We called the police. They were literally there in 5 minutes, and it was amazing the way that they came in. And when they saw the kid, another detective came and separated for them, and the kid started crying because I don't know if he was there, because you don't want to be there. But it was amazing to see our team really step up and did something good.
Wow. Detective, I just had a question with the 500 odd nuisance calls over the last year. Are you finding that most of those are like you don't have to read all, obviously you can't read all of them, but like just trends, are they because of the people in the parking lot, like the homeless? Is that kind of what's causing it? Or is it really just people who are staying at the hotel and paying?
Yeah, so just to be clear, the call totals were not nuisance related, but all calls. So kind of as I skimmed through, and Joyce and I were trying to figure out how to exactly present 559 calls. As we were sorting it, it's a lot of like disturbances, trespassing, domestics, harassment, stalking, 911 calls, some civil stuff, assaults, like things of that nature, I guess, that I would describe as, more petty, issues with people actually staying at the hotel, and then, similar, I guess, to other hotels that we've seen, nature of calls. But there have been, as what triggered the warning, those two very serious calls. But since then, I would say, an overwhelming majority are kind of along those lines of more petty disturbances and, assaults and things like that. But one of the detectives who I spoke to, who works in our property crimes division, noted that a major issue was the door locks, and they were experiencing an extraordinarily high level of burglaries at the hotel. And don't quote me on this, but I think it was somewhere between 10 to 20% of all the burglaries in the city of Fort Lauderdale were attributed to a crime trend that was occurring there. So that's what the real push was for the locks. But on my first meeting with Mr. Santiago, he showed me a picture. They've already installed one, I believe, is like a test lock. They're all in order, and I would say that that's probably priority number one, just from a property crime standpoint. And I think he agrees with that. The other stuff is kind of just clean up, really, of some other things, but that was really number one, was the burglaries and the property crime issue.
May I ask some questions? So, Mr. Santiago, you mentioned renovation, right? Someone said 4 million, and then I think you just said
$7.2 million.
Okay, you're renovating entirely the whole property?
Including the parking lot, the whole 9 yards.
Will the hotel be open during the
Yes.
renovation?
Correct.
Okay.
We're gonna do a floor by floor. We'll start from all the way down, and
Okay.
that's the way usually you do it. Closing the hotel completely will be a nightmare for us. So that's the way it's been done.
So that'll take about 2 years?
It's gonna take 12 months.
Okay. And so then the idea is to sell the hotel after the renovation, you said? Is
Well,
that what
the whole idea is because the property we purchased is at a very low end. So the idea is to remodel, because one thing that he said, the corner where it's at is an amazing location. So that's really our goal, is when you go, especially out of town owners out of the country, that's really normally what it is. You keep it for 4 or 5 years renovation, and you leave. That's normally what it is. And already I'm speaking since I got a relationship with Hilton and Marriott, they both gonna be here next month. So once the renovation gets done, so they can, with the ownership group, they will flag it, and which is something that's what an expert on.
The owner is from out of the country? you
Yeah, it's
said?
from Canada.
From Canada.
They own 9 hotels in Canada.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you were, or maybe the report mentioned that you were raising the nightly rates, but then the detective said he saw $49 a night.
Correct. One of the things that we've been doing, because somewhere I would say that 40% of our room is really bad. So that's the reason they raised it. But what we did was, when I got there, they were charging, let's say, $44 plus $100 deposit when you pay cash. When 90% of the guests there pay cash, I raised that to $500. So now you have to pay $44 with a $500 deposit, which you have deter almost 30% of the guests. They come in again and say, oh, I cannot afford. So that's one of the things that we are doing. And eventually, come February 1st, when we get at least 20% of the renovation, we will not accept no cash payment up on checking, only in checkout. So that's also going to deter any guest who don't have a credit card or it does our PSI compliant that shows that you can find somebody with a credit card, meaning that when you pay cash, you really don't know, who they are. So that's going to also help our. Again, I've been doing this for such a long time that it takes a process. It just, like I said, I told him, it's just a shame that this property got this bad this quick.
Okay, thank you. And then about the recommendations, a few of them. So one of them was you wanted names of employees. Is that so we could do background checks, or I mean, what do you do with that information?
Well, I guess I'd like to state that Mr. Santiago already sent me that information, and without, without disclosing some investigations that are currently ongoing at the property, that was a request from some of our detectives who are working operations.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. So, okay.
But that item's already been complied with.
Okay, so I understand. So that's, it's connected, but it's for something separate, really. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not a recommendation for the nuisance resolution or,
It is a item that is listed in the recommendations.
yeah.
But like I said, Mr. Santiago's already complied with that. So without disclosing
Okay.
too much
Okay.
about that.
And then you were asking also for like the weekly occupancy rate. What do you do with that?
That was a recommendation that I believe we had discussed as it related to other properties that we had taken. And part of that, I guess, is so that we can do a real-time assessment on, what is the cost of the rooms, where are they at with the door locks, what is the occupancy, so that we can kind of, I guess, maintain an overall, feeling on exactly what the activities of the hotel are, especially once they undergo their renovation. So, but that I would say is a less important factor, but more so just that we're getting some sort of weekly reports about the status of the recommendations and, the status of their door locks and things like that.
Okay. So maybe as the hotel becomes less sort of unintentionally friendly to some of these people, then you'll see the occupancy rate go down, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think it's our hope that the occupancy rate goes up and the incidents go down.
Yeah.
Versus if say for example, if the hotel reported a very low occupancy rate and their calls for service also dropped, we wouldn't perhaps measure that as a success on what we were doing, but rather, so it's kind of just a holistic viewpoint from our side of the house as to what's working and what's not working.
Okay.
Also, add to what he said, and which is major in every hotel that I have to cover, the lower the rate is, that's when you get 90% of the locals. Normally, the reason that is because they cannot afford, and they use at a hotel as a place that they can do anything you do at home. And that's one of the things that we are definitely raising, because once we change that, I'm confident that in February, once we go from no cash and checking to credit card, that's going to alleviate, I will say, 80% of the stuff.
And one last thing, if I remember, there was something about, keeping all the non-main entrance doors locked at nighttime. Is there any issue potentially with fire code or anything like that?
For that particular item, my intent was to sit down with Mr. Santiago and figure out how that would logistically work. I'm not 100% familiar with the entry and exit points now, if they require key access or code access. But during my time there, one of the things that another detective and I observed was there was a lot of activity in and out of entry and exit points that were not the front. and some of those doors were kind of dark or not so well lit, and it was kind of hard to even figure out where people were coming in and out of.
What that means is that you're not gonna have access to come from the outside in, even with a key. You can only go out. So that's the reason that's the fire issue. So that would not be a problem because the problem is if it's a fire that you cannot get out. Only a guest without a key cannot go from the outside in.
So do the doors have like, I call them crash bars?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
Automatically.
that's all, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the problem is that if, again, when you have that, I mean, it's ways to place with it and break it. Now we're not gonna have that issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Is there anything that we need to do to bring this under the jurisdiction of the board?
Get a microphone, it's much easier. So at this point, we need Mr. Santiago's representative for the owner to agree that he is stipulating to the jurisdiction of the board, and he's stipulating that his property is a nuisance, as we've defined it, and then the board will have to vote that the property, and find that the property is a nuisance, that brings it under jurisdiction.
Agree.
You have to say you agree, you stipulate to the findings that the property.
I agree to stipulate to the findings of the property and everything they have proposed. Totally agree.
And that is, it is a nuisance.
It is a nuisance. I cannot say that word. It is very hard to mention that word. It's my Puerto Rican accent. I cannot say that word, so totally
You
agree.
did great, though. It's on record.
Totally agree.
That's good, Don? Okay, so I think we should go ahead and we got to make a motion here, and then it'll be a roll call vote.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we receive it as a nuisance and follow the recommendations that are set forth by the Fort Lauderdale Police.
That's fine to group those two?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
You're making the recommendation to, you're making the motion to find the property a nuisance.
It's a nuisance, right, except it is defined as a nuisance, yes.
I second.
okay. I guess we'll call the roll on that one.
Mr. Lindsay,
Aye.
Mr. Fanoff,
Aye.
Mr. Slotnick,
Aye.
Mr. Pimper,
Aye.
and Chair Foreman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then I think in addition to that.
I'll make a second motion to accept the recommendations as written for this nuisance abatement.
I think that was tied to the last motion, you already made it.
Oh,
Well,
we're good.
okay, all right, just wanted to make sure.
Oh, perfect.
Find it a nuisance and make a
Okay.
motion to follow the recommendations of the Fort Lauderdale Police Department.
Okay,
Perfect.
so done.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I think that's it. Is there any other questions or comments? Is there anything else we should discuss there? Okay. All right. The last item, board discussion. Anything from the board? Nothing?
Nothing.
Saying none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Happy holidays,
All in
everybody.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Santiago.